It's menu day, and I'm so happy. And I'm also happy because this is the first week of our no oven series. Lots of people said that they don't like to use their oven during the summertime because, of course, it's going to heat up your house. And when you're already paying for air conditioning, you don't want to pay for more air conditioning. So you're going to see all of the meals this week are going to use either the stovetop, the crock pot, the air fryer. And if you don't have an air fryer, of course, you could use an oven. Now, one of the big things that I noticed about summertime is you can still have those super hearty comfort foods, but you just want to pair it up with something really light. So that way it's just not a super like bogged down meal. So let's look at the menu so you can see what I mean. Now, as you can see, we have a really good variety this week. We have definitely some new twists on some classics, and we also did include a meatless meal because I've had a couple more requests for that. So let's look at the shopping list. Now, here is our shopping list. I'm still trying to keep our meals fairly small as far as the number of ingredients, so you'll notice that our list is not that long. Now, our total this week came out to $57.08, and this was at the Super Walmart in Watertown, South Dakota. Now, I want you to take a really good look at this list because you will notice there are some items on here that we've had on recent menus that are very common. So definitely check your pantry and your fridge and your freezer because you may already have some. Now, one small change, we are a little rice heavy this week, so we did go with the 2-pound bag of rice, but that's going to be up to you. My family typically just makes 1 cup of rice at a time, or now I'm kind of obsessed with making slow cooker rice, but that's a whole nother story, and I do have a video about that. Now, I have 2 links down below. The first one goes to my Walmart grocery list. You can see every single item that I picked out. You can change the zip code to your local area, and then you'll have prices at your local store. The second link goes to my website where you can download and print. It's an easy PDF. It has all the recipes and the list, everything you need. So let's get a look at our make ahead tips. Now, I always think that if you have a little time, like on the weekends or one night, it's always a good thing to try to prep ahead as much as you can. And here are some suggestions of what you can do when you have the time. So that way, on each night of the dinners, you can save that little bit of time. So the first thing is we talked about the rice. 3 recipes are going to call for white rice. Now, if that's too much rice for you, you can easily swap that out to like a pasta or a potato. Totally fine. But if you want to do them all with rice, I would recommend either using a slow cooker or use a rice cooker and go ahead and make all your rice ahead of time. Whether you just put the rice in the refrigerator or in the freezer, it's really easy to just go ahead and bring that back to life super quick and way quicker than making rice from scratch every time because that's going to take at least 20 minutes. We are going to use 3 recipes that include chicken. 2 of the chicken breasts we want to keep whole because those are just going to go in the crock pot. 2 breasts, we're going to want to dice them. And then 2 breasts, we're going to want to do where we slice it in half and then slice it in half again. So each breast really becomes 4 nice little skinny thin pieces. Now we are going to use cabbage. Half of it we're going to use shredded and the other half we're going to use chopped. But honestly, if you just wanted to do it all shredded, that's fine too. We're going to use some romaine lettuce. So of course we can go ahead and pre-wash and chop that. And then we will use 1 onion and 1 bell pepper in a recipe. And that's something super easy. You can go ahead and clean and wash and chop those and you're all good to go. The first recipe this week is going to be a crock pot recipe, and it's so unbelievably simple because we're going to take our chicken, we're going to take a cup of barbecue sauce, whatever you prefer, and then we're going to use a cup of crushed pineapple, and you want that juice in it. Now, a lot of times you can buy the little 8-ounce cans of crushed pineapple, but Walmart only had the bigger cans. So in this case, I'm just going to use a measuring cup. I'm going to scoop out my 1 cup, use it for this, and then you can either freeze or use this for something else. Maybe have some cottage cheese you want to mix it with. Totally fine. Now, here is your first swap. Say you're not a big fan of pineapple. Or say you have a can of peaches already at home and you want to use that instead. This is a great one. I'm sure you've heard of like a barbecue peach sauce. So good. What I would do is I would just, if it's like the little halves of peaches or like the slices, I would just give them kind of a rough chop and then throw those in. Now, we are going to have just some white rice that we're going to serve the shredded chicken over, and we're going to have a side of broccoli. Of course, you can change out the vegetable to whatever you like. I just kind of felt like broccoli kind of went here. This is going to be our meatless recipe for the week. We're going to do some bean, cheese, and rice burritos with a guacamole salad. Now, you have some options here. You can do pinto beans or black beans, whichever your preference is. You could honestly even do refried beans here if you already have them in your cabinet. Now, some people like to keep the beans and the rice separate. Others kind of like to squish it all together. That's totally up to you. When I'm heating up the beans, I do like to use a fork and kind of squish them just a little bit, but that's more of just a texture thing. And I've done it both ways where I keep the rice separate and I keep the beans separate. And honestly, it doesn't make much difference to me. I will say that whatever beans you use, make sure that you rinse them and drain them of their bean juice because that kind of adds to, like they've got a little bit of a metallic taste. Now, of course, if you have dried beans, you can obviously use that, but it will take longer to prep it. And we're just going to make some basic burritos where we mix everything together. Now, I have gotten into this habit now of when I make burritos, I either pop them into the air fryer to get them a little bit of a crisp, or you can do it with just like a clean pan. Some people use oil. Sometimes you can totally do it without oil. And you're just basically toasting each side of the burrito so you get that nice crunch. Either way is fine. Now, the guacamole salad, this is actually something that's served a lot at like lunchtime at Mexican restaurants as like a little side to your order. And really, it's basically a little bed of lettuce with some guacamole on top. Now, in my house, the guacamole, we're just doing like a little scoop of each. So we only need one avocado and one tomato. But if you are a huge fan of guacamole, you can obviously double this up and get two avocados and two tomatoes. It just depends on your taste. This next recipe is a one pot meal. It's kind of like a casserole copycat that we're just going to do on the stove top. And it's also just a really good comfort food. So if you've ever had cabbage rolls, they take a lot of work where you have to boil the leaves first and then you wrap them and then you bake them. And we're just going to do that same theory, but we're just going to do it in a nice big old skillet. And we're going to use ground turkey, but of course you can switch that out to whatever meat that you like. And then basically you're going to brown your meat and then I season it really well. And then I just go ahead and put that to the side. And then I'm going to add in my cabbage, diced tomatoes, tomato sauce, let that cook until it's all wilted down. And then this is where it becomes more of a one pot because we're going to add our pasta and our water. We're going to let that come up to a boil so that the pasta gets really tender and most of the liquid gets absorbed. Now, everybody has a different size pot and the cabbage can be a little different. So when you get to this point, if you notice that your pasta is just a little bit hard still, I would just add a little bit more water, keep it cooking over medium heat until that pasta is fully tender. And then you can actually take it all the way up to boil and kind of boil off that excess liquid. Another great thing is that when you top it with the mozzarella cheese at the end, it's going to thicken up the sauce anyway. So you kind of have to play that one by ear. A lot of people like it kind of a thick sauce. Other people do like it to be a little bit of a thin sauce. So you kind of just adjust it how you like it. Now, you know that I am a huge fan of rice bowls, and one of my favorite rice bowls is egg roll in a bowl. A lot of times we see this made with like ground turkey or ground pork, but we're actually going to make it with chicken. And so what we're going to do is we're going to take 1 to 2 chicken breasts. We're just going to dice it kind of small. And then we're going to go ahead and heat that in a skillet, get it all, to where it has nice golden color, add your favorite seasonings. We're going to remove it from the pan and then we're going to add in that shredded cabbage. In this case, the shredded cabbage is going to cook quicker than it would be if it was like chopped cabbage. But honestly, you could put all the cabbage this week in like a food processor and do the little tiny chunks if that's what you want to do. It's totally up to you. Now, once all the cabbage has, kind of wilted, and because it looks huge when you first put it in, but then once it's done cooking, it's about half the size. We're going to add our chicken back in, and then we're going to stir in some soy sauce. Now, I always have sesame oil at my house, but it's kind of potent, it's kind of strong. So I don't use a ton of it at a time, but this is one of those times when I would just give it a little bit of a drizzle at the end to add that extra flavor. Now, because this is kind of mimicking an egg roll, I do sometimes like to use either like a sweet and sour sauce kind of drizzled over the top, or another one of our favorites is yum yum sauce. But if you don't like either one of those, you could even go with like a sriracha sauce or a hot sauce. There's just lots of room here. Now, one of the things is we are going to serve this over rice. But if, like I said, this week is kind of rice heavy, you could easily swap out the rice for some noodles. You could do like almost like a chow mein effect. And I just use regular spaghetti noodles. You don't have to buy rice noodles or a special lo mein noodle. You could also, instead of rice, you could do like cauliflower, where you put it in the food processor and make it kind of like a riced cauliflower. Quinoa would work really well. There's lots of options here. Now, I am a huge fan of chicken Parmesan, and this is going to be seriously the most simple version you can do, and it's going to be in the air fryer, not in the oven. So we've got our chicken breasts. We talked about how we're going to slice them in half and then slice them in half again. So each chicken is like, I would say almost like deck of cards size, and it's really thin, which is perfect. Now, as far as the breading goes, we are going to get some croutons for our Caesar salad. Well, this is a big bag of croutons, so we can take about half a cup of it and we can just smash it or put it in the food processor and make our own breadcrumbs. Now, if you didn't want to buy croutons, you could easily buy one of those $1 loaves from Walmart. You could slice it and toast it and make your own croutons, as well as make your own breadcrumbs, or maybe you have breadcrumbs already in your cabinet. Now, for the binder, we have a lot of options here. I've been trying not to buy eggs because they're so expensive and they vary so much in price depending on where you are. So the options for the binder is you could use one egg that's beaten with a little bit of water. You could do 2 tablespoons of mustard. Now, when you cook it, the mustard flavor, you don't actually taste it at all. Or you could do 2 tablespoons of mayonnaise as the binder. All of those are fine, and we've had mustard and mayo on our recent lists. So we're going to combine a little bit of that grated Parmesan, kind of the powder stuff, with our breadcrumbs, and we're just going to simply dredge our chicken into our binder and then into our breadcrumbs. And I just kind of pat it to make sure that it all sticks together. And then we're going to pop it in the air fryer for about 10 to 12 minutes. This is going to vary depending on how thick your chicken is. So just keep a good check on it. And I like to flip it about halfway, so that way you get nice even browning on both sides. Once that is fully cooked, you can use a thermometer to make sure that your chicken is fully cooked, because that's always a fear of mine. Then we're going to top it with a little bit of pasta sauce and mozzarella cheese, put it back in the air fryer for about 2 to 3 minutes, so that way it gets all melty and it tastes awesome. And then we're just going to do some basic butter noodles, and you can use any pasta you like. And then we'll have our little side Caesar salad, because this is another one of those where we have kind of a heavy main piece. So we want to do light side pieces, so that way it's not so overwhelming and make you want to not move afterwards. Now, for the last recipe this week, we are going to do a sausage potato skillet. Some people call it a hash. And basically, we're going to mix together all these super awesome flavors. We're going to season it with some Cajun seasoning, and then it's all going to cook in this one pot. Now, we have lots of options here. We're going to use the smoked sausage, and honestly, it's already fully cooked. So we're just going to get it a little brown, and then we're going to add in our sweet potatoes. Now, here's the first of like some options here. Sweet potatoes, sometimes they cook really, really long and sometimes they're quick. So the first thing you can do is if you add your sweet potatoes and you're cooking them and you notice they're just not softening up a little as much as you would like, you can add a little water to the pan, put the lid on, and kind of steam them. Another great option is after you've washed and you chopped your potatoes, you can put them in a microwave safe bowl with a little bit of water and kind of steam them first and then add them to your pan, and they're going to cook a whole lot quicker. So this is one of those, it just really depends on how quick you want dinner. And then we're going to add some onions, some bell pepper, and then eventually we're going to add some red beans. Red beans may be hard to find, but they look kind of like little tiny kidney beans. So you could easily substitute this with kidney beans, even pinto beans, really whatever beans you like. And then we're just going to serve this with a side of green beans. Now, for my family, they're going to kind of want the green beans on the side. I don't know why, but once you add the vegetable in there, it becomes too much and they're going to want it on the side. But if you want it to be a true one pot, at the very end, you could add those green beans to the skillet, put the lid on. It doesn't take very much for them to steam and, basically defrost and warm up. Or you could just do them on the side like we would do. Totally good options here. Also, on the smoked sausage, I have found this in chicken, turkey, beef, pork, so lots of options there as well. Now, I am a huge fan of adding fruits to my dinners as well as my breakfasts and my lunches, and it doesn't take a whole bunch of fruit to add to your plate. I mean, I'm talking about like a quarter cup or a half a cup, depending on if it's a child or it's an adult. But it does add that sweetness and it does actually make you feel more full. So we have lots of good options at Walmart. I'm seeing lots of not markdowns, but their rollbacks where their prices are cheaper. So, of course, like watermelons, pineapple, mangoes, cantaloupes, still seeing citrus and starting to see more berries. Now, these two weren't on rollback, but this is a 2-pound package of kiwis, which is actually a good amount. Usually it has about 7 or 8 in the package, and it's like $5. And my kids love kiwi. And so as the weeks keep coming, I'm expecting to see a lot more berries like strawberries and raspberries. But also don't forget to check your local stores because a lot of times produce is marked at a really good price in order to get you in the door. So if your local stores have better options for fruit, I would definitely pick them up there. But if you're looking to do one-stop shopping at Walmart, these are definitely kind of my go-to fruits this week. Now, if you've made it all the way to this far, I just want to say thank you. You guys are really just like the most amazing community. We have had so much fun this last week over on Facebook with our What Would You Do With It series. Some of the examples that you've given of different ways to use very common ingredients are just mind blowing. I can't wait to try them. So if you're not already participating in our Facebook page, definitely go over to Facebook, just search Lodo Family and you'll find us there. Also, don't forget to sign up for our weekly newsletter because we do just a recap email on Fridays. It shows you the menu ahead of time, and it also kind of shows you the different like meal ideas and stuff that we shared this week. So definitely sign up for that. You can find that on our website. I hope you all have a wonderful weekend, and I feel like summer is really starting to take off now. So we'll be continuing to do this no oven series for the next, I would say, about 8 weeks. So have a wonderful weekend. I'll see you next week. Bye.